We all love the Avengers, but sometimes the Earth's mightiest heroes seem to forget just how mighty they are. In fact, several of the most OP moves in the MCU seem to get lost when they're needed most. Possibly the biggest flex in the entire MCU happened when Doctor Strange, a relative newbie to the sorcery world, took down an all-powerful extra-dimensional monster using the Eye of Agamotto. This would be like Harry Potter utterly owning a full-powered Voldemort within a year of him visiting Hogwarts. Doctor Strange battled Dormammu for what could have been thousands of years, losing every time. Still, he managed to reset the timeline each time, proving that you truly can weaponize Groundhog Day. This was Doctor Strange's defining hero moment, and the one that proved that he was a force to be reckoned with in the MCU. The only problem? He only used it once. When he joined the Avengers to fight Thanos, it might have been useful for him to mention that he could rewind time as many times as they wanted. That way, they could have had a few tries at the Mad Titan to let Star-Lord work out his angst so that they could actually remove the glove. It's hard to believe that in all 14 million futures Strange saw that he never thought of this trick in any of them. Now, in Strange's defense, it's entirely possible that Thanos' powers would have negated the Time Stone's effects. Thanos possessed the Reality Gem, which possibly would have freed him from the reboots. It's also possible that doing that many time loops would create a ton of alternate timelines, which would be irresponsible as a Sorcerer Supreme. Dormammu's dimension didn't have a timeline to screw up. I might be willing to admit that Doctor Strange could know more about the science of time manipulation than I do. Was there a single cheer-in-your-seat moment in Infinity War bigger than when Thor made his grand entrance with Stormbreaker? That is a trick question, because we all know the answer is no. Thor arrived in Wakanda with a weapon that was specially forged to be able to overpower Thanos in the Infinity Gauntlet. Then, against all odds, it actually managed to do so. When Thor noticed that Thanos had arrived, he threw the weapon at Thanos so hard that a blast that used every stone from the gauntlet wasn't enough to overpower him. If he had gone for the head, he would have been the single greatest hero in the MCU. Oh, he was so close to winning that coveted Strongest Avenger title. To be fair, he did eventually succeed in taking Thanos' big purple head from his shoulders. He just needs to work on his timing. Afterwards, Thor took a bit of a downward turn. Even gods of thunder aren't immune to sadness and regret, but you'd think magic axes would be. In the final battle with Thanos, Stormbreaker utterly failed to take Thanos down, even with the help of Mjolnir, Steve, and Tony. This is a huge downgrade in power, considering the fact that Thanos didn't even possess one Infinity Stone. Stormbreaker should have ripped through Thanos like he was a big purple plush doll. The only thing that I can think of that might explain this is how Thor's powers are described in Ragnarok. It might be inconsistent with the other movies, but Odin tells Thor that Mjolnir only helped Thor channel his power, it wasn't the source. So, perhaps Stormbreaker was only able to channel as much power as Thor had at the time. Either that, or him using Mjolnir 2 just halved his power. Look, someone else is gonna have to do the math here. Are there any comic book physicists who can help us with these calculations? It's important work. So, Vision never really makes sense in the MCU. He's an android designed by Ultron who has the personalities of both Jarvis and Ultron combined with the complex workings of the Mind Stone. This would make sense if he had psychic abilities like Professor X, but that's not at all what he can do. Instead, he can turn himself intangible, fly, shoot power beams of light, and alter his appearance to look like Paul Bettany if he was the world's hottest English professor. It's a comic book movie, so I could roll with it, if it were consistent. Vision is portrayed as an Avenger on par with the likes of Thor and Captain Marvel. He's one of the god-tier Avengers, which seems to terrify him more than it does excite him. It kinda makes sense that he would hold back against the likes of Team Cap in Civil War, but not so much in Infinity War. His showdown with Corvus Glaive is not the greatest showing for Viz. Sure, Glaive got a good hit in first, but this should have been an easy win for a god-tier Avenger. I mean, Glaive and Proxima Midnight were overpowered by Black Widow, Cap, and Falcon. For this one, I'm gonna blame the date with Scarlet Witch. Dates are hard enough even without a random superhero fight in the middle. Tom Holland has done a fantastic job with Spider-Man. He fully embodies the contradictory traits of Peter Parker as both a self-serious do-gooder with the world on his shoulders mixed with a snarky attitude of someone who thinks superheroing should be fun. That being said, Peter's powers in the MCU have never really been all that consistent. His spider sense is the most inconsistent of the bunch. What does Aunt May call it? His Peter power? Peter signal? It'll come to me. There are moments where Peter seems supernaturally attuned to the dangers around him. He defeats Mysterio in the end, not by the merits of his supersuit, but by trusting his powers. See, Tony, he wasn't nothing without the suit after all. So things like Cap dropping a crate over him, or any of the fights where he gets kicked around, should be much easier for him to deal with. Let's just blame this one on puberty. Is there a single teenager out there who can focus on anything? Peter Tingle! That's what it was! She called it as Peter Tingle. What were we talking about? Okay, Thor is unbelievably powerful even by Asgardian standards. He can summon tornadoes, unleash huge bursts of lightning, and his hair looks like it just walked out of a L'Oreal commercial even in the heat of battle. That being said, none of these powers may be as impressive as the magic spell Odin placed upon his hammer. Whosoever holds this hammer, if they be at the end of their character arc of that particular movie, shall possess the powers of Thor. That's how it goes, right? Well, that's a cool way to ensure that no one steals your lightning powers. It also gives you a pretty OP finisher that he never really takes full advantage of. In Thor, he briefly immobilizes Loki by putting the hammer on his chest. Loki is then unable to lift it, essentially trapping him there for all eternity, unless Thor calls it. This trick could have been used to take down basically any enemy from the series, but Thor doesn't ever use it that way. The reason why seems obvious. Thor just likes beating people up too much. Gently taking them down with a loophole is just nowhere near as satisfying as smashing their face with a thunder hammer. Okay, I want to see if you can guess this one. You see, there's one very special move that is used in one of the Marvel movies. It can effectively take out even the strongest of Avengers in mere seconds. What is the move? No, I'm not talking about Hulk's breath, but rather the weird taser thing that Valkyrie uses in Ragnarok. Seriously, she takes down the literal god of thunder with a little taser that's somehow more powerful than anything Malekith can throw at him. And I know that he lost his hammer, but this was the film that tried to prove that he never needed the hammer in the first place. I don't know if these things connect right into the pain receptors of your brain, or if they're just insanely powerful tech that makes even Wakanda look bad. All I know is that they kept Thor and the Hulk in line. Honestly, if it were me, I wouldn't have gone through all the trouble of forging Stormbreaker out of a dying star. He should have just grabbed a handful of those tasers and it would have taken Thanos down. Oh, Doctor Strange, what are we gonna do with you? Why do you have all kinds of nifty magical abilities, but you seem to randomly forget them? I'm gonna go ahead and coin this as the Strange effect. The most glaring example of this is the fact that Strange totally forgets that he can create magical portals that can instantly warp him anywhere in the universe. Heck, he manages to open like 20 of them in order to combine the full force of the MCU within seconds of being brought back from oblivion. So why did he totally forget how to do that in Infinity War? The man makes Iron Man crash a spaceship into Titan, even though he could have safely delivered them anywhere in the universe they wanted to go? Why give Thanos the home court advantage? Not only that, but Infinity War showed Strange slicing Cull Obsidian's hand off during the big NYC showdown. Now what battle would it have been extremely convenient for Strange to utilize the ability to supernaturally de-hand an enemy? Yeah, that's right, the one where they were trying to take the all-powerful magic glove off of Thanos' freaking hand. So why didn't Strange do this? Honestly, I think he just has to live up to his title. If you presented yourself as someone who had a PhD in strangeness, you'd probably have some weird quirks too. Iron Man 3 is one of the more divisive Marvel movies, but we can all agree that the last 10 minutes are freaking awesome. Watching a full battalion of Iron Men taking on extremist soldiers was a true festival of everything that makes Iron Man cool. So, Why did neither of these powers come up again? You'd think that Hydra would have gotten an extremist soldier or two to protect Loki's scepter from the Avengers. For that matter, why would Tony even need the Avengers if he could summon 30 Iron Men to help him out? Could he not have at least given one suit to Hawkeye? Honestly, I think Ultron probably made Tony a bit weary of using advanced AI like that ever again. No idea why the bad guys didn't capitalize on extremists, though. See, this level of disorganization and stupidity is why the Avengers always win! Get it together, bad guys! One of the coolest moments in the Avengers came when Thor threw down his hammer at Cap, but his shield managed to block it, sending ripples of power everywhere. Thor and Cap then used this as a special move several times across the series. The only problem here is that Thor did something even more valuable to Tony. It was discovered that Thor's lightning not only fails to damage Tony's armor, but it actually supercharges it more than even the arc reactor is capable of. This insane power boost would have come in handy in literally every battle that the Avengers fought from that point on. Seriously, how many times do we have to hear about Tony's power going out like it's an iPhone he failed to charge in time? Especially when Thor could basically do the Shazam thing and charge it instantly. Frankly, the reason for this is that Tony and Thor just don't have the kind of friendship that Cap and Thor do. Maybe Stark should have stopped calling him Point Break. Do you guys remember the magical Mr. Freeze MacGuffin Loki used to nearly wipe out all of the frost giants at the end of Thor? The Casket of Ancient Winters? It's okay if you don't, because clearly Loki forgot all about it too. At the end of Ragnarok, Loki gets sent to Odin's private vault to get Surtur's crown so that they can destroy Asgard and stop Hela. This is a pretty insane plan, especially considering the fact that they could have just used the casket to freeze Hela and her entire army. Why did Loki forget about this? Well, it's simple. Thor told him to burn Asgard to the ground, and he got more excited than Alexander Hamilton when he got invited to the Constitutional Convention. Really? I get to burn Asgard to the ground? I'm just so happy right now. So that about does it for all the OP moves the MCU kind of forgot about. Which one do you think the Avengers should have utilized? Were there any we missed? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to CBR for more Avengers action.